Yeah.
So it's funny how those lower frequencies can often drive us to shift to a perspective of a higher frequency, right?
So, everything has, there's two sides to it. So you can say, yeah, it's a lower frequency, there's a low frequency to it, but it's a binary. We are binary beings. So yeah.
I really
Okay.
struggle with that
With
because
what?
the idea of, I don't know if it's guilt. I don't know if it's guilt. I think it's guilt. But here I am in this city. My German is not very good. I've had my priorities elsewhere. But I also know the power of language. I mean, I didn't have a choice when I was in Japan, so I learned Japanese in Berlin. I've got a choice. And with my priorities being elsewhere, it means that my German isn't very good. So when I go out, and I've had a few experiences where I've not understood and I've been met with something that wasn't very pleasant. And the first thing that I feel is like, God, man, I wish I knew better. So there's that guilt that comes in, and I get really tripped up because usually the way that we can express something is through language. And it's the one thing that I feel that I don't have, which is not really correct. I mean, when we think about language, what is the percentage of it just being our body and our energy? It's a very, very high percent.
Yeah. It's like 93 or something like that. Oh.
Yeah, right. But I cannot get that through my head in terms of like dealing with the cashier who says something kind of, or whatever it is. And I know that it's limiting my way of interacting with what's around me. Our current world situation also has a degree of influence on that. I don't have as many opportunities, but yeah, like language in that. So Chris, when I'm hearing you talk about guilt and being able to flip that over, the first thing I think about is, all right, how can I take that and flip this over into just focusing on connection?
So perhaps it's not guilt. It's a question, maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
You were speaking about, you feel like you have a need to express yourself, right? And that expression is not really happening. You feel like you can't fully express yourself because you have a limitation with language.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's a fear around how you show up, how you express yourself. You can't fully express yourself. So there's a deep longing, a deep need that you feel. Am I?
Yeah, but you're exactly right. And what I keep going back to is, I mean, I spent a long time in Japan not being able to be understood before I was understood. So there's this aspect of, I understand this. I've been here before. I've been much more isolated, but I would prefer that kind of isolation because that kicks me into gear. I know what I need to do. Here, it's like this gray area of exactly what you said. Like I can't really figure out how to deal with not being able to express myself or being misunderstood. I think it's almost being more misunderstood. Again, going back to the American thing, right?
A fear of being misunderstood?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting because we all try to understand each other based on the words we're speaking. Right now, we're all speaking in English. And Elena, spontaneously, you could choose to shift into Japanese right now because you could speak it. And then, of course, neither Richard nor I would understand you, right? And German or whatever. And, I'm working on Spanish, by the way, but I'm not fluent in it yet. But in that, the power of language and the way we have to communicate and the words we communicate with, when I think about it, it's like, but what's coming to mind, I love Juan Miguel Ruiz, who wrote a book called The Four Agreements, which I think where we resonate with the message of. And the first agreement is honor your word, really. And what that means, it's not just honoring your word and your bond and being somebody of honor, but respecting that the words that you use are powerful. So in the power of language, you know, I see you, as Elena, as having a power to be able to express yourself in different cultures, which is a power that I don't have. And it's an amazing power to be able to communicate with other dialects and languages and cultures and relate to them in different ways. And that multilingual capability is a power that I think that you have in the context. Even somebody who speaks just 2 languages is twice as effective, because they can engage culturally with that power of language and resonate with the culture and the frequency of that other. How do you process this, Elena? Do you feel like you've got a power and a competence and a capability based on the multiple languages you speak?
Actually, I was just having a conversation about this yesterday with my partner, and we were both talking about how having more than one language allows you, like, the emotional, the ability to express yourself becomes higher, in the sense that there are certain words in Japanese that just don't exist in English, and I miss those words. It gets to a different place that I literally cannot access in English. So that's where I think, and like even with my German, I know that in German too, there's certain things that I already have adapted that I can't say in English in the same way. And really, you know, I guess where I'm kind of coming back to is, this is what I help people with. I help people understand this translation when they're going from who they are to online, and how to connect with their people. And so my struggle reminds me of all the different things that the people who come to me are working through, but just in a different context. Like I leave the house for a run or something, or go to the bakery or whatever it is. And I'm encountering one of those moments where, like, I don't have a tool, not in the way that I'm used to having it. So what do I do?
And what was that way that you're used to having it?
Wait, can you say that again?
What was the way that you're used to having that tool?
The tool just being easily understood. So like when you're learning a language, Chris, maybe you can speak to this too, is that language is just a tool. So we just say it, and we just say it, and then we go out into the world and we say it, and someone responds, and you're like, oh, wait, this does something. It's not just a tool. We're using it in the context that it's supposed to be used in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I've experienced that in both German and Japanese, and it's shocking, because you forget that people operate in the way that we're operating right now, using this tool. Because in English, we don't think of English as a tool. It's just, you know, it's our language. So.
And I think it comes down to being able to understand how to use that tool and wield it with competence. Because a lot of people will take a tool and misuse it, and a tool can become a weapon, right? So that's where I think the understanding of how we say things, why we say things, what our intention is for saying things, is a tool that we wield with whatever intention we wield it with, whether it be love and compassion, or, you know, maybe a heavy-handed authority, and maybe an intention to take advantage, or whatever. So I love how it always comes back in these conversations to consciousness and love and respect, ultimately, you know, and wielding that tool and that capability with the responsibility of making the world a better place. That's what I feel like I'm here to do.